The National Innovation and Science Agenda, which is pulled together by the Prime Minister, is premised on a similar belief that we need to create new business opportunities, build new skills into our economy, and find commercial opportunities for our technology and science if we want our economy to grow. It's inward, obviously domestically focused, and all we're doing is taking that same philosophy but applying it to developing countries. To achieve this, it takes collaboration both across academia, corporates, startups, NGOs, other donors, and attracting new talent and skills and ideas, and us as well reforming as a department to not restrict the opportunities just because they don't align with our processes or our knowledge for that matter. Just moving to the next slide. Okay, so our core competencies to deliver activities and embed innovation include valuing different strategic perspectives, which is essentially framing design and systems thinking and taking a global perspective. So in the past, when we've had, hang on, we've got some people now saying not working here, still hear the music, fine line not working yet. Hang on, everyone who can hear, we're just pausing for a second. We're getting a few messages saying people still can't hear. Just give us 2 seconds. Just doing a test speak. Then it's okay. It's okay. Okay, so we'll keep going. So we're just talking about perspectives, and this is really around bringing new perspectives into our aid program and making sure it's not just us sitting in the design room working out our solution, but that we've got other perspectives coming into that as well, whether they be corporate, whether they be business, whether they be people who are living in the situations that we're trying to fix, or whether it be people who have worked on the ground and understand the problems far more deeply than we. The other important core competency is around injecting ideas and insights from frontiers. So latest thinking, connecting with science and technology, partnering with those organisations who are at the forefront of science, technology, innovation, new business models, so that it can bring those ideas into it. So we're not constrained by our existing knowledge. The third is new collaboration. So not doing things in a consultative way, but doing things in a collaborative way. So we've got multiple owners of a particular solution. We can convene whole networks, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. We can co-finance things. This is not just a pure DFAT to recipient grant arrangement. This is how do we leverage the funding of others because we've got other owners in that process, not just DFAT. And how do we source new partners to bring into that collaboration? And the fourth one is capturing and disseminating valuable experience. So we've got a big role in the Innovation Exchange around learning. So capturing learning from our experimenting and sharing that and coming up with new ways to monitor and evaluate. So if we look at the way, hang on one sec, we've just had another one say, I have no sound. Is it there in? We've got 3 now. Okay, so we'll keep going. So yeah, back to monitoring evaluation. Our traditional approaches of monitoring and evaluation is essentially to look at the time frames, if you like, as to how we want to look at how something is going, that testing process. It is not just a matter of doing a review every 6 months and someone writing a big long report and telling us whether something is working. What we need to do is have constant feedback loops with our innovators so that we can understand what they're learning when they're out in the field doing their testing. And that needs a whole new monitoring and evaluation system. So that's one of our big focus areas for 2017, is to find new ways to work with partners. And it could be something as simple as an Instagram account where People can take photos and send us, short snippets of what they're doing, or how they're learning, or what challenges they've come up with, and how they're getting around that, how they're adapting there at their prototype. And then the other part of it is, how do we tell a story around what the benefit of that innovation is, what we've learned from that, and how that is having a broader impact. This is not about proving that we can do something better than traditional approaches. This is just finding new ways to perhaps have impact that we've never touched on before. But if we can't tell a story about it, then essentially we won't be able to know whether we've had impact or not, and we won't gain the support that we need across the globe. So the next slide that I've just gone to is really about our three fundamental pillars, if you like, of our work. The first being experiment, so find new things and try them out. And then if they don't work, that's okay, because you're trying at small scale. The other one is partnering, so that's about bringing new knowledge into the program. That's about leveraging the skills, and hopefully in some cases leveraging the finance of others, because we can't scale the really good experiments on our own. And then the third pillar is around learning. And if we can't learn, then we can't grow, we can't adapt, and we can't get better. If we do all of those three things right, what we hope is that we'll achieve better impact than what we have now, and we will make a better contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals than what we've had in the past. So just to talk about some of our ways that we go about searching the world for new ideas. If you look at the traditional approach, it's really a tender process. So DFAT, perhaps engages a consultant or two. We sit in a room for a couple of days, and we design a program based around how much money we've got to spend and how much time we've got to spend it, and what we'd like to achieve. Now really, therefore, because of that composition, if you like, we are really quite restricted by what the people in that room know, who they're linked to, and what their experience tells them. What we don't have in that situation is a whole new perspective that perhaps we've never even taken before. Perhaps we've not really looked at something from a commercial opportunity perspective. Perhaps we've never looked at anything, what technology might be out there that can actually address that problem in a way that we've never dealt with. So an increasingly common way to go and find those ideas that we could never think of as our own is to run challenges. And they can take different forms. So we've learnt during the last 2 years and 5 challenges that we run or currently developing, that while dollars are useful in terms of the support that we can provide, the advice and the networks that we can link people with are actually far more valuable and a really critical factor in success. The first challenge we ever ran 2 years ago was the Pacific Humanitarian Challenge. It was a relatively simple challenge. We really just used our basic development networks to go out to an audience. We used a bit of social media, but really it was a relatively small effort, if you like, in terms of who we might reach. And we got 129 ideas for that challenge, and across 17 countries, which we were really, really pleased with, and we ended up supporting 5. Then our second challenge, we realised that we actually need to have our global reach go much further. And so we partnered with an organisation called Second Muse, and we linked in with CSIRO's networks. We also linked in with World Wildlife Foundation because we wanted to have a sustainability element to our program. We also partnered with Conservation X Labs, which were a group based in America who had big academic networks of people who are looking to improve ocean sustainability across the world. And we used them to link us in with academics, with think tanks, with other organisations that were also looking at ocean sustainability and fish production and food sustainability, and we used them to help us find the innovators that were out there around the world. And in that challenge, we got 220 ideas from around 40 countries, and again, we were even more pleased with that. But what we also I guess adapted from our first challenge is in our first challenge we spent 2 days working with innovators to improve their ideas before they were ready to sort of pitch for a final prize pool. In our second challenge we We worked with the innovators, over a couple of days as well, but we're also providing them 6 months worth of support, business support, to help them develop their business models, find new investors, find new markets that they'd perhaps not thought of before, and even link with each other. So we've got this whole mentoring network now around those 10 innovators that we ended up supporting. And then for our next one, we adapted again and we tackled the problem of nutrition. And again, we linked up with other networks, but we realized the problem of nutrition is not just a developing country problem, it's a global, massive global problem. It's not just an undernutrition, it's an overnutrition problem. And in order to really solve this properly, we had to change the whole system. So this was not just a matter of finding innovators out there with ideas. We actually had to link with companies who are food producers. We had to link with the agriculture sector. We had to link with people who can influence the behaviours perhaps of children or people in the home that are making food choices. And so we started this whole new approach to challenges, which I think Australia has been the only one that is really done. And it was taking a model used by Nike and NASA to say you need a network in order to solve a problem that's systemic. And we took that network global and we ended up partnering with 100 different organisations, including Jamie Oliver, because he has a lot of influence globally around food. We partnered with IKEA because they've got a lot of money that they want to invest around sustainability of food, and food is their next sort of big business area. And we also partnered with, Coles and Sanitarium, so some of the big food suppliers, Walmart, for example, and Mars Foods, who all play a really, really important part in that global food chain. But as well with academics, NGOs have been part of that design process and that networking process as well. And through that big network, instead of reaching, maybe a couple of 100,000 people with our message and awareness of our challenge, we reached something like 17 million, helped by a couple of tweets by Jamie Oliver. We can't take all the credit, but it was that network that made that really, really, really successful, and we ended up getting around 300 ideas from 74 countries. So each time we do this, we learn and we adapt and we try to focus on what's really, really important. And so now our next move is to really focus, try a slightly different model around prize money. So this is not really around a challenge as such, it's similar, but we're partnering with an organisation called XPRIZE to offer basically prize funding. So they don't have to take the idea forward. What we actually hope is the idea could be sold commercially. But what it does is brings a whole new set of research and technology into tackling the development challenge of water availability and water access in developing countries. So the reason that we've gone this way is because we're not asking for new ideas based on existing technology. We're asking for new technology to actually be created. And this new technology will extract water from the air. And there are requirements around how cheaply that must be done and how much water must be produced, because we want it to be accessible and a useful technology for developing country communities. So we're still going through that process and we'll see how that goes. But again, we're just trying a different model because we think a different model is warranted in a situation where we're looking for brand new technology, and a lot more support will be needed around that. And it's also a different audience, if you like, for that prize. And then another challenge to round off our challenge portfolio is around education in crisis, which we're doing in partnership with the MICTA grouping of countries, which is Mexico, Indonesia, Turkey, Korea, and Australia. And for that model, we know that there's a lot of experience out there. We know that there's a lot of knowledge around education in crisis situations, particularly in the NGO community. So we're working with an organisation called Open IDEO and a global knowledge initiative. And really what they're about is how do we gather all of that research and knowledge that is out there? How do we bring it together? How do we make it then available to everyone? And so that people can put forward ideas using their own knowledge and using that collective set of knowledge to come up with a new way of addressing that particular problem. And again, we're in the design phase for that, so we'll see how that goes. So I'll just flick to the next slide, which is increasing impact through strategic partnerships. So the work that we do in the Innovation Exchange is not just about finding a little innovative prototype or new technology or new innovation sort of partner it's about actually bringing new knowledge into the aid program as well. And I touched on that early. So we've partnered with organisations like Google to bring their technology expertise both into our decision making, but also into our networks. Second News, who've got global networks around challenges, so they're sort of a global expert in the challenge model. Leapfrog, who are an impact investor and in the financial markets, so we think that that's an important issue that we're going to have to address in the future, and particularly around remittances and particularly around financial inclusion. And they do it in a very commercially sustainable way, and they find business enterprises that have commercial prospects and they invest in them and support them and network them. So we've partnered with them not because we give them any money, but because we want to use their knowledge and their learnings and bring that inside our program. World Wildlife Foundation I talked about before, and Conservation X Labs, University of Technology Sydney have done a lot of work with us around entrepreneurship. They have their own entrepreneurship school, and again we want to learn what does it take to create a successful enterprise, and they're bringing that knowledge into our program. Monash University have done some very interesting research around tackling Zika and dengue, and again we've been working with them around that. And they also have an undergraduate degree called a Bachelor of Global Challenges. And we have 3 of their honours year students working with us on our Education in Crisis Challenge so that they get an educational benefit from it, but we also get their fresh ideas and fresh thinking from what they've learnt through their studies brought into our program. And we've also partnered with Intel, we've partnered with USAID, we've partnered with an organisation called GSMA, which is like a global conglomeration of all the mobile providers out in the world, again to use their technology expertise. And we've formed a partnership with USAID, Sweden, the UK, and the founders of eBay, which is Omidyar, to pool our money together to create a private sector fund, which you all have access to. If you just go to www.globalinnovation.fund, and they are seeking good ideas that have a commercial business case around them, but that can address a development challenge anywhere in the world in any sector. And we've invested, and they can invest debt and equity, which is something that we can't do directly. So that's our pathway, if you like, for a different type of investment and to test how that works. So this is really about finding organisations that can help connect you, help with your awareness raising, help you with idea generation, help you bring expertise to the table in a really cost-effective way. Most of these organisations don't charge us for the advice and the expertise they bring to the table. And it also gives us more credibility. So if we're running a technology challenge, having Google's name on the table means we've got a bit more cred, and we've also got some expertise that we can help us assess what's a good idea from a not good idea. We are still looking for more partnerships like this, and we know that in order to find the right ones, we need to understand each other's business objectives and each other's drivers. And so it's not just about saying, hey, you look like a good organisation, let's work together. What we found is you really need to find that point of common interest between the two of you before you can really take something valuable forward. Okay, so just to talk a little bit in more detail about some of our challenges. So the Pacific Humanitarian Challenge was really about creating better connections. So this was in an area that obviously suffers from logistical challenge. People don't really know where the assets are. And in the event of a crisis, we might know very quickly how the main sort of cities within Pacific Islands have been affected, but we sometimes don't know for a long time how the outer islands have been affected, and we can't reach them very quickly. So this was really about creating connections, connections within communities. So we've got a mobile app that can work when there's no other sort of mobile towers available in the event of a disaster, and communities can connect with each other through this new app. Between communities and emergency responders, so that we can capture images very quickly through drones and other satellite images into a single dashboard, so we can know who's affected where and to what extent. Between communities and capital markets, so communities can access cheap insurance through a product called Beamer. And while BEMA's been out in the market, they've realised that actually people also want access to a medical service in the event of a disaster, and so they've attached a tele-doctor service to that particular product. And also between communities and response teams, so that communities are involved in the response. Communities can actually be part of providing supplies, for example, or providing services, and we can Red Cross have a program to sort of pre-approve a number of small businesses so that they can not only access insurance, but they can actually be part of that response process. And not only have we seen the adaptation of the BEMA product to include teledoctor, we've also seen the adaptation already through testing of our Firetail drone, which is the yellow sort of looking thing you can see in the bottom picture. And they've realised that through working with communities, what communities also want is to be able to use that drone in non-emergency situations and to help them do farming better. So the drone has been adjusted now to take topography mapping to inform farmers about what's going on in their farms, and infrared testing to help them with crop management as well. So all of these things might have an original idea, but then as we test, we find new adaptations for it. Our Aquaculture challenge was really around using robust research to identify where innovation is needed in aquaculture. So we pulled together a whole cadre of international experts in aquaculture, in ocean sustainability, and we worked out that, yeah, aquaculture was the right place to focus our attention when the minister said do something for the blue economy. It was about finding the right balance between economic opportunity and sustainable oceans. And therefore we partnered, as I said before, with WWF. So we split it into 3 areas that we, again, through our big network of experts, worked out was the most important ways that we thought we could improve aquaculture productivity and livelihood opportunities. So one was new ocean products, so new sources of protein other than fish. Sustainable feed, so how do you feed the fish in fish farms something other than fish? So I think something like a third of the world's ocean catch is actually used to feed other fish in aquaculture farms, so we knew we had to get away from that. And more sustainable farm design, so how are farms actually being managed and what are the tools that they can use to manage their farms more efficiently. And we ended up, like I said, getting 220 applications, and we supported 10 of those, with some in each of those 3 areas, and they're now going through a business improvement program with a mentor. There's a number of those, one in particular called microsymbiotics, which is around a new way to immunise fish, and they have already secured commercial finance on the basis of our sort of business support and our seed funding for them. And another one has entered into 2 new country markets, Bangladesh, I think, and Myanmar, that they weren't actually connected. No, Bangladesh and India, that they weren't actually connected to before, through this network that we've connected them with and through these mentors. So yeah, we're finding that we adapt as we go, but the most important thing for these innovators is to find new opportunities for their business. Our next challenge is the food launch, and really we went down the nutrition path because the minister gave us a mandate of working in the health sector, which is obviously very broad and very wide. But we decided that nutrition was an area that we thought we could bring value to, because it was an area that wasn't really being addressed, and it was an area that crossed geography boundaries, and it crossed sector boundaries. So it was an education issue, it was an agriculture issue, it was a health issue. And so we decided that we could bring some convening power and some collaboration power to that particular challenge. And as we did our research, we realised that this was very much around the food choices that individuals make in the home, right up to the food that is actually being supplied into these markets and its nutritional content or lack of. And it was also something that needed not just a few prototype experiments, but it needed the whole system to change. So yeah, together with Second Muse, we've adapted this launch model, which is a networked model to finding solutions to challenges. And we're trying to get a whole movement, if you like, around healthier food. So we ran a social media online food diary where we got people around the world to post what they thought healthy food was. So it started this movement of literally thousands of people posting a picture of their breakfast or their lunch or their dinner about what they thought was healthy, and to promote the idea of fruit, vegetables, meat as a healthy diet. And the hope is that through the 10 finalists that we've chosen, and we've just been through a workshop last week in the US with those 10 finalists, and we also went through a process of finding a virtual reality or augmented reality provider, again through I think a hackathon that we ran one day. And we've included them in that finalist group because we think it's so important to be able to tell the stories, because this is a system change issue. Telling those stories and getting those stories out there is going to be critical to success. So having someone who can tell those stories in a really different way and in an immersive way, we thought was important. So we also chose a virtual reality innovator to be part of that process as we go through. But I think this is one challenge that we will take to a whole new level. So this is a challenge that we're already talking with IKEA and some other big global companies around how do we really get an even bigger movement. Global companies around how do we really get an even bigger movement happening around this. Companies like IKEA have got $100 million set aside to work on sustainability for food. And so how do we as an organisation tap into that enthusiasm and that capital opportunity to bring some of that to our own region, and we're working on that right now. Okay, so this is just some of the problems we're trying to address in terms of child stunting, child wasting, child overweight, and adult obesity, nutrient deficiencies, and of the NCDs like diabetes type 2 that all come as a result of poor nutrition. Okay, so the next one is XPRIZE. So I've already talked a little bit about XPRIZE and the fact that we're looking to find new technology. So I won't dwell too much on that one. I'll keep going. And just talk a little bit about our internal culture change efforts. So we've decided on a model to get some, not that we thought this would necessarily drive internal culture change, but we thought it was a good step to get other people outside of the Innovation Exchange engaged in the innovation agenda. And we wanted to create not just messages from the top down, and we've had fantastic support from the Foreign Minister and from both the current and the previous Secretary of DFAT in terms of pushing innovation and pushing more creativity from staff. But we thought staff actually needed to demand to want to be part of that agenda as well. And so DFAT has a culture of being quite competitive, and so we decided a competition was the best way to tap into that culture, but to also help staff realise that good ideas can come from anywhere, and just because you have an idea that maybe doesn't relate to your work area doesn't mean it's not a good idea, and doesn't mean there shouldn't be a pathway for that idea to be heard. We also heard from staff that they found ideas were often suppressed through hierarchy, and through their managers sort of saying, look, I don't think that will work, or I don't think we've got the money or the resources for that. We wanted those ideas to have an open, fresh pathway that had no hierarchy involved. So we allowed staff across the globe to put up ideas with no approval process. It was just any idea from anyone could be shared across our staff, and we did it through an online platform. We also needed to get the executive to be comfortable with that, and that was relatively easy. But I don't think anyone realised how many ideas we would have and then what we would do with them. So a lot of other organisations we talk to tell us that these challenge competitions are dangerous because they create expectations that staff ideas will be adopted. And yet sometimes you can maybe only adopt one or two. While we chose 3 winners through our Ideas Challenge, we did a lot of marketing to send information to the work areas of other ideas that we thought were useful and they might wish to adopt. And as a result, around 30 to 40% of those ideas are now sort of adopted or included in other reform processes in some way. So we actually think that's a pretty good adoption rate. And we're really comfortable with that. And we've adapted that Ideas Challenge model. We're now on our 3rd Ideas Challenge across the department, and each one has sort of looked and felt a bit different. The first time it was just complete open slather. The second time we got the ideas to focus on 5 strategic challenges for the organisation, and the third was really focused around our white paper and how do we get some innovation around policy, foreign policy, and use that to inform the white paper process that's going on right now. The other thing we realised was that a lot of our posts do innovation, and they do it quite well. They're quite experimental in the partnerships and the work that they're doing, and we needed to capture that. So we created what we call an interactive map, which we are just in the final steps of making that public. So everyone will be able to see it on the Innovation Exchange website. But that's just really around sharing stories of what everyone is doing in this innovation space around the whole Australian aid program. And I imagine a number of NGOs out there will feature in those stories. And the other area is that we want to make sure that where a post wants to try something new, that they've got the resources to do so. So often posts tell us that they can't try something new because their programs are too small and they're under a lot of pressure to consolidate, and they don't want to do small-scale experimental things. And the other thing is that they don't have the experience to do it. So we created what we call the Development Accelerator, which is a fund of $12 million over 2 years, which we hope, and I think Mark has spoken to a number of you about, we hope that NGOs and multiple other organisations and possibly even individuals will present ideas to our post programs, and we will provide money and mentoring support to our post to enable them to give those ideas a go. So the reason that we want them to be post-led rather than coming directly to us is because really this is about starting to mainstream innovation activity across the whole program. This is not about the Innovation Exchange doing things. This is really about the whole aid program becoming more innovative. So we're providing some of the means to help those programs do that and to give them a channel for small-scale funding that they don't otherwise have. So it gives them some flexibility. And already we're starting to see some program designs for the big programs come through that are leaving aside sort of 5 to 10% of their programs for innovation as the opportunities emerge over a 5-year program. So we're really, really pleased to see that development happening. Just skip through that slide. Okay, so 2 years in to the program, we've realised there are so many ideas out there and we need to continue to access that breadth of views and expertise to work out which ones offer us the most potential, the ones that are going to be most cost effective over time. And we need to also find further ways to develop those ideas which offer promise. An idea is not an innovation, it's just an idea. It's a step along the way, and the idea owner needs to be willing to have that idea adapted and played with and maybe partnered with another idea in order to have it be the most effective it can. And so investing in the innovator and their attitude and their approach to their innovation is just as important to us as the innovation. We've learnt very early that partnership and networks is absolutely crucial to this work. We don't have all the knowledge in DFAT that we need. We don't have the experience that we need. And so understand the potential application or feasibility and viability of the innovations we're looking at. Our partners are absolutely critical in helping with that. We've also learnt early that rarely do we see an innovation just ready to go. They all nearly need an investment of money and they need an investment of time and support and advice to increase their chances of success. And they also need to know that it's okay to fail, to have a bit of time to adapt. We often hear the words around innovation of, fail fast. And I think this is all fine in theory and fine in the world of startups. It doesn't work equally as well in the world of developing countries. And you need a bit more time to really work through what's driving the challenges that you're facing as an innovator. And you need a bit more time to have room to adapt and not just try something and it failed and give up. We need to give those innovators room to adapt and to change around to meet the circumstances or the context, because sometimes that context can be quite volatile and unpredictable. We've also learned that risk is a kind of funny thing. We talk about risk and being less risk averse and need to engage more with risk, but it always means different things to different people. Governance processes in DFAT are well established to deal with traditional types of risks that programs face, like risks of corruption, fraud, getting no partner government support or knowledge gaps or low local capacity. But what we're not set up to consider is the reputational risk if one of our corporate partners makes, and say, an extraordinary profit from an innovation that we've shared, or we lose 100% of the funds that we've invested because the innovation just didn't work. Or perhaps there's another activity that that business undertakes that we don't even have a connection to, but somehow it gets links back to our partnership with them. And those are the types of risks that we just really haven't had to face before. So gaining access to new expertise is critical in this culture change process of getting us familiar with these different types of risks. And often what I've said to our executive when we're putting up sort of brand new projects that they've never really seen before is this is not necessarily more risky, it's just unfamiliar. And so we've got a job in the Innovation Exchange to make these types of things more familiar and more comfortable, and take on the risks at small value so that the program areas can take these on at bigger value and they'd be more familiar with that. We have also learnt that storytelling is crucial. We haven't spent enough time in our first 2 years really sharing the stories of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what we're learning. So that's going to be a big focus for us in 2017 is around storytelling and around capturing those stories of impact, and what are those innovators learning, and what challenges are they facing, and how are they adapting, and how are they getting around them. We've also learnt that we never really lose 100% of the value that we invest, even if something fails, but because we always learn from that, and if we share that learning and it informs a better innovation or a better aid design in the future, then it's been valuable. So just back to, these slides have so many clicks in them. Back to our 3 areas of work, which is experimenting, partnering, and learning. So the experimenting is really showcasing what's possible and how it might be better than current practice. Operating in genuine needs or areas of need or gaps unable to be addressed by conventional approaches. Encouraging staff to trial innovation, often within existing programs on a small scale. So saying to people, you know, if you've got a $100 million education program, the whole thing doesn't need to be brand new approach. Maybe just one small element of it needs to be new. And also learning by doing, trialing new approaches to evaluation, results collection and projection, and is really all part of our experiment. Even the way we recruit staff, the way we work physically in the Innovation Exchange is all an experiment. In partnering, it's providing channels to access the latest thinking is really what it's all about. Offering DFAT and whole government partners an easy to access source of expertise on innovation and a cost-effective pathway as well. Convening across conventional boundaries, and we talked before around nutrition, just crossing different boundaries to the point where it wasn't really being addressed by anyone. Valuing complementarities, connections and leverage between programs, and seeking impact and sustainability beyond the life of the IXC. And really this is the fundamental difference between us and a traditional bilateral program, is that we're really looking just to be a seed funder. We don't want to fund something for 10 years. We don't really want to fund something for 5 years. We really want to fund something so that it can get up and running as a business opportunity and leverage its own external financing post that testing phase, or it becomes such a fantastic innovation that our partner governments wish to adopt it in their own programs, or our bilateral programs see that as a big cost saving perhaps, and they adopt it in their programs. But we really don't want to create things that create a burden for someone else to use rare and scarce donor funding to fund. And we also want to provide a flexible funding source for innovation. So we really want to always have room within our program to take advantage of opportunities as they present. And learning is really around engaging in and a strategic future-orientated dialogue around aid here and internationally. So we're on a number of international boards, we're on a number of sort of discussion panels and think groups around how do we make sure that what we're testing and learning is not being repeated by someone else, that we're actually sharing those learnings, that our new processes for monitoring evaluation or how we take ideas to scale are being shared across different donors so that we can all learn from that and not have to repeat the same mistakes. And we can get economies of scale where possible. So USAID, for example, came in and was a financial partner for us on our nutrition because they were going to do nutrition anyway, so why not do it together? We also want to explain and debunk the language of innovation. There's so many different terms out there around design thinking or, um, you know, yeah, terms that really all mean similar things to old-fashioned language. You know, design thinking is really just design a program, but do it in a way that you understand different perspectives. It is perspectives of the users, the beneficiaries, the partners, the commercial opportunities. Bring them all in a room together and build that in as part of your design. We want to learn from successes and failures. We want to offer training on decision-making processes so that the aid program maximises its potential for innovation and increased impact. And we want to champion innovation across the aid program. There's not a lot of use us bashing our heads against a wall working with program areas that really don't want to be engaged in this agenda. So we're picking some programs to invest more resources with that we think have really got a strong appetite within their own country environment, but also within their own teams to try things new, and using them as champions to then influence the harder to convert program areas. And we're trying to reduce the perceived risks of adopting new approaches through knowledge sharing and experimenting. Like I said before, making the unknown more familiar. And just quickly and lastly, I mentioned before the Global Innovation Fund. So this is a fund that's available to anyone, including all of you. And they have a vast range now of 30 different innovations across countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, and the Middle East. And we are continuing to be a funding partner for them, and we're also at the moment looking to become a shareholder on their board. And that process is underway. So I'm going to stop there and open it up to questions. I think we've got about 20 minutes for questions. So yeah, type away and we'll try and answer those questions as best we can. Okay, I can see some people are typing. So if there's anything you want clarity on, more information on, or how you might connect with us, please let us know. Okay, so I've got a question that says, what's the best way of contacting you for a preliminary chat about an idea? The best way is to send us an email. So I'll give you the email of Shannon Ryan, who is our director and is our sort of main contact point for our NGO engagement. His email is Shannon, SHANNON.Ryan at Innovation Exchange, no, at dfat.gov.au. So if you just send through an idea, we can either organise a teleconference or a chat over the phone, or if you happen to be based in Canberra, you're welcome to pop in to our office. It's at 44 Sydney Avenue in Barton. We're across the road from the main DFAT building. Just got another question saying, hi there, thanks so much for a great presentation. Can you tell us about the partners that have been successful previously? So far, all of our partners have been pretty successful. We're really happy with our Bloomberg partnership, which is around data for health. I didn't talk too much about that one because there's quite a bit of information out there already, but they've been really, the good thing about that partnership is they're being a private sector organisation, they move much faster than us. And so we've had to think about how do we move at their pace? How do we make decisions at their pace? And how do we really use what they're doing and think more around standardizing what we expect from them. Because if we keep expecting our standard set of information and reporting, and then they can't move as fast as they're moving. So we found them to be a really successful partner. Google, we have a great relationship with Google. They've come down and out of their own pockets provided us with lots of training sessions, which we've opened up to externals to come along to as well. And they're a great source of advice on technology, and you know they're such a big network of organisations. Google is not just Google; they're Google Food, they're Google Oceans, they're Google X, they're Google Loon. And through that whole network, that they can access all sorts of good ideas and brainiacs to bring into our discussions when we're developing our challenges. So they've been successful. I think, look, we don't have a partner that hasn't really been successful yet. I think they've all got their own stories. I could talk for ages about that. We've got another question here. Have you considered additional ANCP funding to be used for innovation? I'm going to put our ANCP colleague on the phone to answer that question for you. Hang on one second.
Hi everyone, Marty Horton from the ANCP team here. Of course, ANCP is one of the best ways that accredited NGOs can quickly and easily access funds for trials, pilots, and to scope ideas because of the flexibility that the ANCP model offers to you. Of course, you're already completely welcome to, in your ad plans, include ideas that are trials, innovations pilots, and so on and so forth. And you know, a lot of the success of that ANCP partners have had to date has been recognised within the department, including with the Gender Action Platform funding that was made available this financial year for the first time. So I guess the ANCP is already there for you guys to use in this flexible way to approach innovation. Thanks.
You can also access the development accelerator through our posts as well. The next question is any indication of what the next challenge areas or themes may be. We've just been through a process of trying to narrow down the possibilities, if you like, and the Minister has a meeting with her, what's called the International Reference Group, towards the end of April, and on that group is Sam Mostyn, who's the chair of ACFID, and so if you have any issues that you'd like or opportunities that you think you'd like to feed into that meeting, please do that through Mark and through Sam. But essentially, there's a few possibilities which we're looking to get the Minister to ponder on with her reference group, and one of those is around energy. We see energy as a big emerging area. We see the need for more technology to be adopted across the aid program, so we're looking at something possibly around health diagnostics and how do we use technology for health diagnostics, so for remote health diagnosis. We're also looking at how we might better tackle issues around women and their role in governance processes. So that was a challenge put to us by a backbencher, Kathy McGowan, who visited the Xchange and who has a lot of links in the PNG. So we're having a little think about that too. But so we're a bit open at the moment. We want to stay broadly within our areas of health and economic growth, but you know, we've already wavered into the areas of water and education. So yeah, we're kind of not too restricted in that. But we will come out after that IRG meeting with a few new focus areas. Another question is innovation failures. It's a bit early to actually call some failures at this stage. I think we're still adapting and learning, and if anything, the innovations that we've supported are not really adapting because they've failed. They're adapting because they've realised there's even further application of what their innovations are. So no stories of failure yet, but as soon as we get some, we actually look forward to sharing them. The next question, I'm going to have to talk a bit faster, from Terry is, have you collated all these new ideas and partnerships in a single publication? Yes, we are in the process of doing that actually right now. I gave my final comments on a final draft actually this morning. So we are calling it our progress report. It's our sort of 2-year update, and it will capture all of our different reports. So it'll be available digitally on our website, and we'll certainly let our whole network know when that's available. Another one is, are you happy to play the partnership broker? Yes, absolutely. That's a broker role is something that we do quite often. So, you know, often an innovator will come to us and sort of say, look, I've got this idea and it's in palm oil, I don't know. And if it's not an area that we kind of really work in, and it's not an area that perhaps we've got the room to invest in, we'll say, yeah, but we know someone else who is working in palm oil, or they're running a challenge. You know, it might be another donor or another philanthropic group who are running a challenge. Or an NGO comes to us and say, look, I've got an idea around this, but I need a corporate partner. Do you know who else out there might be interested? And we're certainly happy to act as a broker in those situations, so come and have a chat with us. Google is a good example. Google do run annual impact challenges. We got involved in their second one, but they are fully focused on the not-for-profit sector in Australia. We might not necessarily go down that path again. We think the need for innovation across the region is broader than just the Australian not-for-profit market, but we got some really good responses. We supported 4 through that, and Google supported a further 10 ideas through that challenge. So we're more than happy to connect you with Google and to have a think with you about where you might find those connections. Next question is, what would be the best way to share your learning? For example, the aquaculture skills you mentioned in your presentation. Any plan for regular information sharing sessions with NGOs? If you would like them, we're happy to have them. I think opportunities like this with webinars is a good way to learn. Having people that were actually involved in that accelerator process is a useful people that we can connect you with as well. So Steph Kimber, one of our staff who's actually currently seconded to the US to work on our partnership with them, was involved in that accelerator program and has some fantastic learnings from that. And so I think just we sort of worry about giving really generic presentation updates or regularly that people will get a bit bored with that. We'd rather tailor it. So I think if there's a particular area of our work that you'd like to learn more about, let us know and we can organise perhaps a webinar or something like that around that particular topic. The next question is, there's just a response to the question around ANCP, and it says yes, the ANCP does offer a lot of flexibility. I suppose the specific question is what percentage would be allowed to fail. That's an excellent question. And I think failure is a relative thing. So I'm going to just put Maddie on the phone again, and she can give you her perspectives, and I can perhaps give you mine.
Thanks for your question, Lena. Within the ANCP, we don't have any hard and fast rules or policies on percentage. We don't have any hard and fast rules or policies on percentage that we would allow to fail. But when we do gather from you performance reports from projects, and when we're reviewing the ad plans that you're presenting at the beginning of the year, one of the things that we often provide feedback to NGOs on is that if you are proposing in your ad plan a project that is a trial or a pilot or something innovative, is that we look for you to give us some specific information on how you're going to measure and monitor and evaluate that pilot, and at what point you're going to make some decisions about whether or not that has been a success or a failure. And then within your performance reporting, we just like to see that if a project has been a failure, that you've addressed that, particularly in the sections that look at lessons learned, and that as Lisa was talking about before, that anything that's a failure, it has lessons in it, so it's not a failure in that perspective. So I guess if you're addressing how you're going to measure success, and then reporting on what lessons you've taken from the project, then we're happy for you within your ANCP portfolio to pick and mix and choose in line with the ANCP manual. No hard and fast percentages.
Hi, it's Lisa here. I'm just going to add something to that response. I think the approach that we take to failure is if it's one part of a bigger portfolio, then you can afford a little bit of failure. And if you're investing your whole ANCP money in something that's really, really risky, that's probably not a very good idea. But if you've got some known quantities within your ANCP program, and there's just 5 to 10% is generally a bit of a thumb rule that we're using for our bigger programs at the moment. That you just want to try something new to the edge. It might be related to one of your existing ANCP funded programs, or it might be something completely new, but that's kind of okay because you've got some safe bets in there as well. So think of it like a portfolio or investment manager would, that it's okay for a little bit of failure, because if the other ones are still working well and you've got your main portfolio is working fine, your 5 to 10% is not a hard and fast rule, but it's a bit of a rule of thumb that we sort of use with our bigger programs. We have a much higher risk failure acceptance rate in the IXC because it's just the nature of what we do. But as a bigger program, we're sort of using 5 to 10% as a bit of an indicator. I'm just going to pass over to Shannon Ryan on the question on education in crisis. Will this be a challenge after the design phase? Shannon's actually running that challenge, so he can talk to you about that and how the actual challenge will work.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I think there's probably a few people in this group who participated in the big think we had last week on the Education in Emergencies Challenge. To the specific question, yes, we're going to run it as a challenge. It'll be run through, so the challenge lead will be an organisation called Open IDEO, which a challenge for international development of IDEO, which is the global design firm. So we're expecting to finalise all the preparatory work for the launch of that in early May, and then it'll be open for, I guess the Open IDEO has a staged process, a global call for ideas. They then close that, they kind of sub-select those that have most potential, and then they go into a prototyping process with those. So yes, stay tuned. There'll be a lot of communication around the launch of that. So you'll hear about that in due course. A couple of other comments from some of the questions that came up around, one in particular I think could be useful for organizations here is what are those characteristics of partners that we look for? I think some of the really successful cases that we've seen for some of the challenges like the Pacific Humanitarian Challenge was where NGO partners partnered in a consortium with some other organizations. So you don't need to kind of have all of that innovation or tech or whatever it may be expertise in-house. So kind of look to some of those like-minded, and I know you all have quite broad networks out as it is. So, you know, they offer a lot of potential, and often that's what we're looking for in challenges. And then just the question on more information sharing. As Lisa said, we're really trying to ramp up our storytelling around the breadth of our work. So I think keep checking back into the Innovation Exchange website. We'll be having more blog series and communications on there. So that will hopefully give a bit more of a flavour of some of the detail of what we're doing and where we're looking to go. Lisa, I might hand back to you, although I don't think there's any more questions at this stage. All right, so if you have any last burning questions before we finish up, I think we've got a few minutes left, so we'll wait for a couple of minutes to see if any other questions come through. Otherwise, I'll hand it back to Lisa to kind of thank you and wrap up.
Okay, so it looks like that there's no more questions coming through. So just on behalf of ACFID and DFAT, thank you very much for your time in dialing in. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Innovation obviously is needed in the webinar world as well. But yeah, we really appreciate the time. It's great to have the opportunity to share with you what we're doing. And if there's anything that we've talked about this morning that sparks an area of interest for you, please do let us know. You're also welcome to contact me on lisa.rauter, which is RAUTER @dfat.gov.au, and happy to meet with you or refer you to the right person in the team, or perhaps the right person in another organisation that we happen to be working with as well. And yeah, thank you for your time. If you've got any questions after this particular session, please feel free to let us know. You can also email your questions through to ACFID as well, and I'm sure that they'll forward us on if you forget our email addresses. So thanks again, and we look forward to continuing to engage with the NGO sector in our challenges as we go forward. You guys offer a really, really unique perspective in the challenges that we run. You're extremely well connected to the communities, and that from a user design perspective is invaluable. So we please encourage you to get involved in the design processes for future challenges that we have, and to bring us your ideas when you have them, or to bring them to the ANCP team. I'm sure they'll be very receptive. The organisation has really heightened its interest in organisations that we work with, really trying something new. And the more that you can do it in a way that doesn't place a long-term increased burden on the aid program, the better. So let's experiment not just around the idea, but around how we fund those ideas into the future as well. So that's really, really important. So thank you all. We'll sign off from this end and enjoy the rest of your day.